Good afternoon, everyone. We're just letting everyone in from the waiting room. My name is Rachel Keegan. I'm the Director of Enrollment at School Year Abroad, and you are attending the SYA France admissions webinar. We have a terrific bunch of guests this evening in France, this afternoon here on the East Coast, who are going to, I think, provide a really informative and helpful program to many of you who are in the middle of your applications. I think this will answer a lot of questions. I will encourage you all to put Q&A in the chat box, and we will have a question and answer at the end of this event. Before I pass this over to our resident director, Madame Qadir, though, I have two comments, quick ones. One, this webinar is geared for our academic year program. So the content and the students that are participating will be sharing experiences during our academic year program, year-long students and our semester students. If you're interested in our summer program, I encourage you to check out the website. There's a lot of information there, and we will put the email of Jeanette Kirby, who manages the admissions for the SYA summer program, in the chat box too. You're also welcome to attend and learn about the beautiful city of Rennes and things like that, but the content here is geared towards the year-long program or the academic year program. So Sarah is on my team, is going to share a great video about SYA France, and then we will pass it over to Madame Qadir to introduce our guests and share her program with us. Sarah?
So the first time we went to Mont Saint-Michel was with our host siblings. That was a really fun experience. We crossed the bay with them, so we were knee-deep in quicksand. It was a really good way to bond with our host siblings and with each other. This entire year has just been about things being based on where we are or where we are going with the school next. You learn about something and then you get to experience it, which is really interesting because it makes classes a lot more engaging, knowing that we're going to see the things that we're studying.
I absolutely love Rennes. The Marché de l'Ys is the biggest outdoor food market in France. So you have everything from vegetables to seafood to cheeses to bread, cakes, flowers, and it's not just for tourists. Really, it's the locals who go and just get their weekly groceries. Sometimes I'll go and get flowers for my host family. I could not have been placed in a better host family. I think it's there where I've learned the most French and learned the most about French culture.
I think I've learned a lot, especially, and retained that information just because our projects have been very, very interactive and place-based. We learned about the life of a soldier. There's a World War I monument at Place de la Mairie, and there's the list of names of all of the soldiers. Each of us chose a soldier that was from Rennes, and we studied that soldier and we looked up the databases about him. It was really meaningful just to track the life of someone who actually lived where we're living right now.
Even greater than Rennes, just the region of Bretagne is really unique, and we spent a lot of time in classes learning about what makes it so unique.
My friends have been a big part of this experience because I've been able to find a really good group of people who are just as adventurous as I am. I'm very glad I did SYA. It has opened my horizons to travel and being more independent.
I think it's just made me more excited to continue to expand my horizons and to learn more about the world.
It really is a game changer. You can't explain it, you have to experience it.
It's been one of the best decisions I've made in my entire life.
Thanks, Sarah. Always such a beautiful, we were talking before we joined the call how beautiful Rennes is, and it is really, really beautiful. Fun to see that video. Madame Qadir, all yours.
Merci, Madame Keegan. Bonsoir à toutes et à tous. Bienvenue. Welcome, everyone. Like Madame Keegan said, it was great to see the video again and relive some of these moments. Actually, some of the students featured here on this video have come back as alums. So you saw a glimpse of our beautiful city. SYA France has actually been in Rennes since 1967, so over half a century. Rennes is the capital of the Bretagne region on the west side of France. And we'll talk more about living in Rennes in a few minutes with two of our current students, Léa and Océane, who have kindly accepted to join us on this call. So first, I'll have them introduce themselves. En français, je vais commencer par Léa. Est-ce que tu peux te présenter, s'il te plaît, ta classe, ta ville d'origine, le nom de ton école aux États-Unis, et tu peux ajouter, bien sûr, ce que tu veux.
Bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle Léa, j'ai 16 ans et je viens de Maryland ou Washington, D.C. Mon école d'origine est SYA France School. Et oui, j'adore Rennes, j'adore SYA et j'ai hâte de continuer l'appel.
Merci Léa. Juste en anglais rapidement pour faire la traduction.
Okay. Hi, my name's Leia. I'm from Maryland, near Washington, D.C. I'm 16 and my home school is SYA France School.
Merci beaucoup. Océane, pareil, la même question, s'il te plaît.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Océane d'Arabian, j'ai 16 ans, je viens de Californie, mais je vais à l'école à Mercersburg Academy en Pennsylvanie et je fais du plongeon. So hi, my name is Océane. I'm from California, but I go to school at Mercersburg Academy, which is in Pennsylvania. I'm 16 years old and I do diving here during SYA.
Parfait. Merci, Océane. So before we really start talking about the program, as a sort of side note here, I just want to say something. Océane and Léa might blush at what I'm going to say next, but I want to say that I have a lot of admiration and empathy for our young students. I would say it takes a special kind of student to do this program. So the students you see on the screen right now and the rest of their peers have made the choice of leaving behind them the comfort of home and I would say everything they know to embrace a new country and in a new language. So I like to look at School Year Abroad as a place where education is not preparation for life, but is life itself. So students who sign up for this are those who really are looking for independence, I would say, perspective taking, problem solving, and of course, in our mission, language acquisition. So our students' experiences really go beyond what you might see on the website. It goes beyond the new foods they're trying, the customs, the traditions, the architecture. They're really immersed in the culture and they gain an understanding of the new world around them and their place in it, while they still have a big job of representing SYA and their home school and their country. So to transition to the parents who are on the call tonight, I would say that it also takes a special kind of parents to let the child go so far away. So tonight we're joined by Madame Darabien and Monsieur Nilsson, Léa's and Océane's parents, and I had the pleasure of meeting Monsieur Nilsson over the break last month. So welcome again and un grand merci for taking the time to be with us tonight. You were yourself in the audience last year, and tonight you will give your perspective as parents of current students. So if I could have both of you introduce yourselves, please.
I'll go ahead and start. Yes, hello to everyone. My name is Mark Nielsen, and it's my daughter Leia that you see also with me there. And we're based in Maryland, and I had the pleasure of visiting Leia over the holidays. And so later today, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have concerning the program, any anxieties that you feel, and the experiences that we have gone through with Leia being away from home at this length of time for the first time. So once again, welcome to everyone.
Hi, my name is Melissa D. Arabian. I am Océane's mom. and I was in your shoes last year, so I share the excitement. Seeing that video took me straight back to this exact same presentation for me last year, and what a joy. I'm from Coronado Island, California, which is just off the coast of San Diego, although I'm actually physically in New York right now with grad school. So I know about both of those locations. And welcome. And if you have any questions on the parent side, please feel free to reach out, put it in the chat. I will try to keep an eye on that. And welcome. This is the beginning of what I hope will be as much a joy for you as it is for OCN and our family.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much to both of you. So I would like to start by giving all of you an overview of our program and then have our wonderful students share their experience. So first of all, currently we have 56 students. 43 are annual students and 13 of them are semester students. This week, we actually welcomed our spring semester students. So we have now the entire student body with us. They're very busy. We're fully back into the rhythm of the classes. Right now, I know they're looking forward to their next trip, which will be next Thursday to Nantes, which is a city about 100 kilometers from Rennes. And everyone, I think, is also very excited about our 5-day trip, academic trip in February, which will take us to Paris. So you might wonder what school looks like here on a day-to-day basis. So students take 6 courses. Each student gets to choose 2 elective courses. We offer politics, science, art history, and cinema. All of our elective courses are taught in French and are designated as fieldwork classes. Which means that they have a component of learning that takes place outside of the classroom. So in addition to these 2 elective courses that students choose, students also take 4 mandatory classes. Those are English, les mathématiques, French language, and experiential French, which is our signature fieldwork class. For this experiential French class, which is unique to SYA, an entire day of teaching is dedicated to doing class outside of the building. So you want to imagine students having 4 days of traditional class time, and every Thursday is fieldwork day. So again, it's very unique and place-based class, and to illustrate what we do in that class, and we actually had fieldwork today, I'm going to ask the students to share their experiences during fieldwork and perhaps also give us a couple of examples of their favorite fieldwork so far. So je commence avec toi, Océane, s'il te plaît.
Yeah, so for example, today for fieldwork, we talked about the street art in Rennes, and it gave us a great opportunity to research about Rennes, but also to spend time walking around the city and to kind of see something that's very relevant, which is street art and how people show their art on buildings or on different parts of Rennes and what they mean. I have to say one of my favorite field works was when we were students at Jean Massé, which is the local high school here in Rennes, just because it's so interesting to see how other countries have high school, especially since the American high school is such like a stereotype and big thing. I want to see how other cultures have it. And it was also interesting to kind of just meet other teenagers our age and kind of see how they live, how the system works. And it was great to just make new friends in a new language, help us practice our French. So yeah, I loved it.
Parfait, merci Océane. Léa, est-ce que tu peux aussi donner un exemple d'un fieldwork?
Yeah. So I feel like there's like 2 genres of fieldwork. There's the more local Rennes-based fieldwork, like the one we did today with street art in the city. And I remember last semester we did a fieldwork in Rennes about urban gardens and urban green spaces, which was really interesting. And then I'd say the other type is trips. I think my favorite fieldwork was the second time we went to Mont Saint-Michel in November. It was just a really fun day with friends, and we got to visit the old cathedral. And yeah, the trips have been fun, but so have the local fieldworks.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. So I'll turn to parents now. And again, since each fieldwork is designed so that we make the best use of local resources and we really push students outside of their comfort zone in using the target language, can you tell us, parents, what type of growth you have perhaps observed in your child when you visited last month? Je commence par Monsieur Nielsen.
So to answer the question, what's the most amount of growth that I've seen with Leia? Enormous growth for one, but what has surprised me, well, not really surprised me, I guess it was an expectation, but regardless of whether you have an expectation or not, when that expectation is realized, it's no less satisfying to see that. And so with Leia, it's probably no surprise, but it's her independence and her ability to be more independent when it comes to travel, to navigating through cities, but also in the way that she composes herself in a foreign country with foreign nationals, and hearing about her experiences with that, and then later seeing how she interacts that way. And again, I have a huge advantage having recently visited, but it was during that visit that I was simply blown away with, and Leia's going to blush because I know I told her the same thing, but her interaction with the French, because always as a French student and me trying to get her to speak more at home, she was quite shy. And then when I arrived there, suddenly she's just very confident with not only her French, but just in her confidence interacting with people. And again, that's an expectation of the program, if you will, but for sure, it definitely happened with Leia. And so it was that independence, her ability to move around, to navigate the city, and then her wonderful composure and interaction with others was what surprised me and pleased me the most, if you will.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll jump in and talk for a minute. Yes to all of that. Ditto, same. There were some examples that kind of come up of things that happen that I'm like, oh, this is only happening because OCN is at SYA. Like even something as simple as one time when OCN and we have a scheduled FaceTime every Sunday morning my time, afternoon in Rennes. And so we just, update. I've got my coffee and we just update and I just hear everything. And so I hear all these little stories. And so like one little story that would be an example of like, oh, wow, that's a shift, was the story about OCN joining a gym and how like she had to go and like negotiate the contract, I'm sure there was a template, but negotiating the contract for signing up for the gym. And then she got to the machine, she didn't know how to use it, I'm guessing it was like a treadmill, and she had to ask somebody how to use it. And I think I barely do that in English. Like if I don't understand how to use the treadmill, then like, hey, that's a sign that maybe I'm not working out today. Like I was so inspired by how it never occurred to her to let any of those obstacles get in the way of her pushing through that and navigating that path. And so I think that habit that she's learning at SYA it translates into other areas. And I'll give you one more example where I see that habit of advocating and for pursuing along a path despite obstacles is I think about like some of her English work, which sounds crazy. Like, at SYA, I sort of almost thought that maybe her English writing skills would kind of go down and take a back seat. But no, like her class is super rigorous, and the ideas that she pitches in her English writing assignments are really robust and interesting and rich. And so she has shared with me some like brainstorms or what she wrote her English paper about, and how she, integrated Hemingway into like her life and identity coming into France, like really robust, rich thinking and writing. And when I hear that, I'm thinking, my goodness, my daughters went off to SYA and in France is learning how to be a better writer in English and a better thinker and human. So those are some of the examples of things that I love seeing in Océane.
Merci beaucoup for this very complete answer. So just because you talked about the English class, so we do intentionally choose curriculum that's relevant to our students. So the authors chosen for the students are very oftentimes authors who have lived, American authors who have lived in France. And actually, when we go to Paris in a few weeks, we'll be going to Shakespeare and Company, the library. The students will get to see that and see where Hemingway was sitting and writing. So that's the place-based education. So thank you. And on the growth, I just want to add that I oftentimes tell the students when it gets hard, because it does get hard sometimes, it's not an easy experience. It's wonderful, but it's not easy. That it's really 2 years into one. That's really how I would describe it in one sentence. There's so much growth that I would really count that 1 year at SYA equals 2 years at any school. So thank you. So I'll move on, and we've talked about classes, and I would like to speak now about another very important pillar of our program. And I know that a lot of parents have some type of apprehension about this, and I'm talking about our homestay experience and our host families. So first of all prospective host families are interviewed by our very dedicated host family coordinator, Madame Delanou, who does not only do the best possible placements using the information you provide us, but also provides ongoing orientation and guidance to both the host families and the students throughout the year. I can't emphasize enough that the homestay is a key part of the student's journey here, and overall experience, I would say, and for a couple of reasons. First of all, it really provides our students a mean to develop their language proficiency and understanding of the culture that really completes our academic program. It's really an extension of what we do at school. And we're very thankful that we have a wide range of families who all have in common a sincere desire to share their home and their life with our students. I would say also, and this is very important to the students who are listening right now, that future students, that we expect our students to also be actively involved into the life of their host family by doing very simple things such as sharing their day at the dinner table, doing activities with the host family, asking questions, and just being curious about the new country and culture. So we asked students to very much adapt and embrace their new way of living. It is, again, a homestay experience. It is not a room that we're renting or a dorm. So it will feel very different than what they used to back home. But I would say that most SYA students keep in touch with the host family long after they leave the program. And I would say just this first semester, we had many alumni come back and visit the host families, and they stay with them. My neighbor, my next door neighbor, actually hosted, I think 40 years ago. She's 85 years old. And her host son was at her house yesterday, and he's close to 60 now, and he still comes by and visits every couple of years. So it really speaks to the bond that the students get to have with these families by the end of the year. So I'm going to have Océane and Léa illustrate what I'm saying and maybe share their homestay experience. Et je commence par toi, Océane, si tu peux vraiment nous donner un exemple de ta vie en famille d'accueil, et puis aussi peut-être parler du trajet. You commute to school, and I'll ask the same question to Léa right after. Merci.
Yeah, so the homestay experience was definitely interesting for me because I grew up with 3 sisters and I moved into a house with 3 host brothers. So I knew coming into it that I would be living in a very different household. Um, but honestly, just keeping an open mind to it really helped me adapt to everything, and kind of just the difference in culture, keeping that open mind really helped me be more like integrated into the family easier. But I have to say, really, the weekend that I arrived, I really tried to immerse myself as much as possible, like going to the marchandise with my host family and trying all the Brittany foods and all that stuff. Um, and every day at dinner, talking with them about my day, asking questions about their day, has really made me feel like I'm part of the family. And now it became really quick for me to be like, yeah, I live with three host brothers. Like they are my brothers, you know. So definitely keeping that open mind really helped. And also the language aspect of speaking with them every day, and them speaking to me about their day. Honestly, it built my language in French so much better. And it became a thing in my host family that, like, when I learn a new word or like a word of the week, they have a chalkboard where they write the word on, and then they try to integrate it into sentences that we use. And it's just habits that you create with your host family that just makes you learn more and more. And so honestly, kind of keeping an open mind at the beginning really helped with that. And my commute to school is really easy. I have around like a 5-minute walk every day, which is really nice because I can sleep in a little bit. So yeah, I don't have much of a commute, but I know that's different for every person at SYA. I know friends who it takes 10 minutes and some who it takes half an hour. So honestly, it's different for everybody.
Merci, Océane. That's why Océane is never late. She's so close to school. Merci. Léa, s'il te plaît, la même question. Et puis bah, aussi une petite emphase sur le trajet, parce que ton trajet à toi est complètement différent que celui de Océane.
Yeah, I can say that my host family has been just incredibly welcoming and great this whole year. I have an older host brother and an older host sister. I live in the house with my host brother and my host sisters at university. Um, and I can say that I agree with Ocean about the language aspect, because I've learned a sort of a completely different side of French here than you learn in school, because you can learn as much vocabulary as you want at school, but there's just a certain part of the language that I don't think you can learn until you're talking to someone around your age in that language. So yeah, my host brothers taught me a lot of words. My host parents have taught me a lot. And each night we have dinner together and we have discussions in French. And I think that's where I've seen the most progression in the language. And as for the commute, mine is very different from Oceane's. I live pretty far from school, and there's not really a bus that goes like near my house. So my host mom drops me at the metro station every morning. And that was a bit of an adjustment at first in the beginning, but it ended up being all right. I mean, she's so nice, she's so kind, and she essentially, whenever I want to go into the city, she'll drop me off. And so it hasn't really been a problem.
Merci beaucoup. Je passe aux parents. So parents, if you could share about perhaps your apprehensions in the beginning of the year, seeing your child move into the new homes, and speak to the relationships they have formed with their host families. Je commence par Monsieur Nielsen, encore?
Okay, thanks. Well, yes, that was my biggest trepidation and my biggest worry, if you will. And, besides the obvious ones of security and safety. So here's what I recommend to parents who have those same concerns. Once we knew the placement, and by the way, the SYA, they know what they're doing. They know how to place kids with families that match. And if for whatever reason they don't match, then they change them. So you're not stuck per se with that family. So never worry about that. But the first thing that we did to help is that once we knew who the family was, we reached out to each other rather mutually to schedule an online get together, if you will. And that was a priority for me. I just really wanted to know, just get to know this family. And the minute I saw them on the camera and we started talking, all of my fears were allayed. Seriously, that was the kind of, I don't know how to say it, feeling, connection that I felt with them. And you could tell, especially with the homestay mother, her name is Natalie, you could tell that there was a certain warmth and that she was committed, she was kind, and she kept repeating over and over again, yes, the experience is good. It's good to come here to improve your French. But she kept saying again and again, it's that joy in the heart that is the most important thing that they must feel when they're here. No joke. She kept repeating that phrase. So she obviously saw it for more than just an exchange program. She saw it for the life-changing experience that it is, whether you intend it to be or not. And so we met several times online before Leah went over. And after that point, it's never easy saying goodbye, but that made it so much easier when I got to know the family online, our discussions, asking all of our questions, how is it going to be for Leah? How's the commute? What will be expected of her? What do you anticipate in the program? What are your fears as well? And we just maintain constant communication. We chat probably even now every other day on Insta, direct message. We now have a WhatsApp group that we use, posting pictures from our experiences here. And then, of course, when we met them in France, it was, you cannot even believe what a warm reception they gave us, hosting us for dinner. They even let us borrow their car one day. I mean, it was really great. We did a side trip to Mont Saint Michel and Saint Malo. So and I'm so glad, Ocean, you mentioned that your family is also fantastic. So I recommend getting to know the family ahead of time, as soon as possible. And I can guarantee you, in most cases, once you make that connection, things will be a lot easier emotionally. Over to you, Mina.
Yes, so I'll address. So yes, thank you. Those are some great recommendations, and it's really good to be reminded that people who are hosting these students, they're in. They're in for all the right reasons of wanting to have that exchange and the joy in the heart. So I love that. Some of our concerns, kind of the concerns that I had were. One, we were just concerned a little bit about the academic component that, your junior year abroad, like what is that going to do for, the trajectory of OCN and what she wanted, what her academic goals were. So that was sort of my, kind of concern at first. And then, and I'll just address that above and beyond, those concerns have been completely addressed, and they're so unfounded. I'm really excited by the rigor, but also the support and the really thoughtful curriculum that seems to exist in all of OCN's classes. So I worried for nothing. I mean, really for nothing. So that was really a huge joy. The second piece was, you're sending your son or daughter, your kid off for 10 months. I wanted to make sure that she was getting put into good hands. And I will tell you this, I have been so impressed from the moment I did this, this webinar last year, through the whole application process, through the all of it, up until when Oceane's flight got delayed and she missed the big group flight to France to arrive, and and so she ended up arriving like the next day or something, and they SYA sent out a teacher to Paris just to meet Oceane. It was such a well-oiled machine that they know what they're doing. I think, Mark, you said that earlier, they know what they're doing. And it is such a good feeling to feel like my daughter is in really good hands. And this is a really thoughtful group of feeling people, caring for these young people. I was worried that Oceane would get tired of oh, this is too long, I want to come home. And just the other day in our Sunday, or maybe we talk more than just our Sunday FaceTime, but that's our kind of carved out time. Ocean was saying, I just figured out that I'm 5 days past the midpoint. And she's like, I can't even believe that I'm halfway done. I'm so glad I went for the full year. So all of those sort of fears and concerns really were completely taken care of by the fantastic support and heart and thoughtful curriculum that is SYA.
Thank you so much. So now a few words on co-curriculars. So our students all participate in an activity outside of school. We are fortunate to be in a big city where most activities are offered. It includes things like dance, soccer, music, art, crew, swimming, the list goes on. And all activities in France are detached from school, so that's very different than in the US. Here it's offered through private institutions or city clubs. So we have an activity coordinator on site. Students choose the activities in September. And actually, we have one of our first fieldwork during the immersion program that's actually called Finding Your Activity. So this is a school requirement for all of them to participate in an activity outside of the school building. And the reason why it's required is that we want them to connect with local French students. So we all heard Océane earlier talking about the exchange day when our school went to a French high school, and we actually hosted that French high school in our building in December. So the goal is, again, for them to meet teenagers who are the age and speak the same language and have the same interest, because that language acquisition is very different outside of the building, where here it's very much academic. So that explains a little bit what we do around co-curriculars, and I'll have Océane maybe tell us quelle est ton activité, Océane, ce que tu as choisi, what you're getting out of it, et if you can mention maybe 1 or 2 clubs at school.
Yeah, for sure. So I do diving at the local pool in Rennes. And I have to say, I was really nervous at first because I was like the only kid, I was the only girl, and it was just a very new environment for me. But I have to say, everyone is so incredibly welcoming and kind, especially when I don't understand something, that it made me feel right at home. And even my coach, after my first day, he sent me an email with every single diving term from French to English or English to French, just so that I can study it and feel better about going into practice and understanding. And honestly, everyone is so kind. Like, even after diving practice on Wednesday, we all went out and had galette de roi, which is a tradition here in France, which I'm sure Leah and Madame Qadir know. So honestly, yeah, everyone in Rennes that you'll find at your activities is very welcoming. That's even something that my dad mentioned when he arrived, was that everyone we met in Rennes was very kind and very just welcoming to everyone. And a lot of my friends at school, they do art. So my friends do dance. So honestly, there are multiple different activities you can do. And also, just to be involved in the school, we have something called Spirit Committee, which is just a way to kind of plan activities for the school and also just get closer with our students around us, which is great.
Merci beaucoup, Océane. So Océane's part of the Spirit Committee, and she was part of the group who went to Paris, Charles de Gaulle last weekend to welcome our new spring semester students. Très bien. Léa, si tu as aussi, si tu peux parler de ton activité, et puis peut-être un autre club à l'école aussi.
Yes, so I am part of a chorus here in France at the Rennes Conservatory. And I've been doing it since September with one other student from SYA. And like Océane's experience, it was pretty difficult at first. I don't think either of us knew we knew what was going on, but it was definitely a little hard to follow. But now, after 4 months of doing it, I follow the course without like a second thought. It just feels like second nature now. And it's been a really great experience. We actually have a concert next week, our first one, and we've been working on this piece, and I've been learning all these like choral terms in French, which has been really interesting. We're not singing in French, unfortunately, we're singing in Latin, but still to have the conductor speak to us in French and just get that ability to fully immerse yourself in an activity with all French people around you has been just one of the greatest parts of my SYA experience. And I can say that the people around me and the activity have been so helpful. If I don't understand anything, I can tap one of them and say, can you help me out with this? And they will. So everyone's really kind here. And regarding school clubs, I'm also part of Spirit Committee, but I'm also part of a club called News Decoder. So basically at the beginning of the year, News Decoder came and gave a presentation to the school, and I believe their headquarters are in Paris, but it's a global news service that publishes articles written by students from around the world and their member schools. And so our News Decoder Club meets maybe once every 2-3 weeks, and you can write articles for News Decoder and get published. And I myself am a student ambassador and am helping to plan a webinar with the other SYA campuses and their News Decoder clubs, and we'll be discussing global issues. So, yeah.
Parfait, merci.
Oh, sorry, two other clubs that we have at SYA, which I think I forgot about, where we have the yearbook club, of course, to kind of create the yearbook for the end of the year. And one other club that we have that was actually student created was the a cappella club, because we have so many singers in SYA this year. So yeah, we've had like a concert for it. So yeah, there's multiple clubs to choose from at SYA, and even clubs that students can create.
Merci, Océane, d'avoir ajouté ça. Oui, every Wednesday here is there's a concert in the building. They meet on Wednesday afternoons. So perfect, thank you. Lastly, I'll talk about living in Rennes, because you might be wondering, how life is here, and is the city big, small? So it's a medium-sized city. Rennes is actually labeled as an art and history city. Its history goes back 2,000 years. It has a preserved medieval and classical heritage through its architecture. I would say it's a very, very young city when you're looking at its demographics. The average age is 30 years old, so it's very young because it's a university town. It's the 10th largest city in France. I would say it has a very unique feel to it because it's both large and it's also very much pedestrian. You can walk everywhere, and you have, of course, quick access to shops downtown. The school is really close to the center of town. It's walkable. It's very close to the Parc du Tabor, which is the second most visited park in France. But it also has quick access to rural areas and forests, and it's also close to the sea. So we're 45 minutes from Saint-Malo and Dinard, which students often visit early into the year with their host families. And we actually, as a school, also went to both of those cities on Thursday fieldwork day. It's also, I would say, very well located because it's an hour and a half from Paris by TGV. And it has been voted several times over the years as best city in France for quality of living. It has museums, of course, multiple libraries, sport facilities, cultural centers. It has the second biggest farmers market in France. It's 450 years old since last year. It's very old marché, farmers market. You would find around here, around the school, cafes, boulangerie, crêperie in every street. So I would say it's a pretty fun city and a safe city at the same time. But I'll ask the students to maybe describe how it feels to live here now that they've been here for 4 or 5 months. Je commence par Léa cette fois-ci.
Yeah, I personally, I love living in Rennes. It's not a part of France that I think gets talked about often or is what you think of when you think of France. But this whole region and this city is so interesting and full of history. And it's been such a pleasure to learn about it. And it's so different from the United States, in that after school, instead of doing sports or just going home in a car, I'll walk around the city with my friends, or I'll go to a cafe, I'll get a pastry. And the location of the school is great. It's really close to the center of Rennes. And that means for lunch, I can go with my friends. We can go get food in Santan, which is everyone's favorite place, for restaurants and things like that. And it's been so lovely to live here. And I can speak more about Brittany, the region, because it has a history that's a little bit different from the rest of France. And it's been really interesting to learn about that history and live in this region that is a little different to other places in France.
Merci Léa. Océane, tu as quelque chose à ajouter?
Yeah, I have to say, like for me, Rennes is perfect. Considering the size, I think is perfect for me because it's a medium-sized city where it's like you're in the city. There's a metro system and great like transportation, so we can get around everywhere. But also it's not so overwhelming that you feel if you like take one wrong turn, you'll be lost in this ginormous city like Paris, for example. But also there's so much, like for me, one of my favorite things is the food options here because also there's multiple cultures that come and there's so many food options, but also the Brittany food is very special and also very delicious. So honestly, I love learning about the history and kind of just walking around the city. There's the architecture here is very specific, but it's very beautiful, and I love just looking around and looking at the specifics of Rennes, how the buildings are. It's one of my favorite things. And it's one of the first things I talked about with my host mom because we had been walking around and I was like, I just can't take my eyes off the city. It's very beautiful and it's the perfect size. And there's just so much history and food from it that I love. So yeah, I think it's great.
Merci, Océane. Maybe one last question to the parents. So, Madame Darabien, if you could talk a little bit about safety, since I know that's on everyone's mind on this call, and maybe talk about the rules that are in place at SYA France and curfew. There's a lot of independence given to students, but we also have high expectations on how to follow those rules. So I don't know, as a parent, if you can share a little bit how that's sort of you process Océane being here with us and not seeing her on the weekends. And
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, it's this really interesting mix of, being super independent and then also having the scaffolding that that makes me as a parent, thousands of miles away, feel really comfortable that Océane is safe. And this, I think, probably gets back to that really core sense that, oh, you all really know what you're doing. You've done this before. You are not neophytes at threading that needle of creating scaffolding that allows for independence. So for example, like when when the students first get there are definitely rules in place about, how far you're allowed to go or for how long, like you can't do overnight travel and those, the traveling is, and independence is sort of introduced in a scaffolded, supported way. Like I know that in the first few days of orientation, the students had to do like an activity. I'll call it a scavenger hunt. I'm sure it was not exactly that, but some sort of scavenger hunt item sort of thing where they had to use the local transportation to go and get all of these items so that these students in their first few days, I'm sure they were jet lagged, but it was a great way for them to learn what they needed and gain the skills to have the next step of independence, which is these kids are going around with their metro and bus passes and like can whiz around town on their own sort of just fine. And so it's this combination of scaffolded skill introduction that then leads to this tremendous amount of independence that that seems sort of surprising to me back at home, but also super exciting. And lastly, I'll just say that, you know, kind of on the other end of that, you know, learning the local bus system to a few weeks ago, it was just before the holiday, or yeah, it was just before the holidays, you know, OCN went with a few friends to Metz for a couple of nights. And, you know, but it's, you know, we fill out paperwork, everybody knows where they're going. It's a very scaffolded, very thoughtful release into the world. And, you know, and OCN went with some friends and stayed in a hotel and had a weekend away in a really exciting but safe way that that felt really good. So it's sort of like somebody really is putting in the investment and the work into giving these kids this incredible independence that I'm pretty sure that OCN, has she just been, you know, living with us the whole time, we probably would not have sent her out to hotels with some of her high school friends. But yet here they did, and it made complete sense, and it was a real growth opportunity.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur Nielsen, any word of wisdom about safety here in Rennes?
Yes, because that was my biggest concern for Leah going there. And so here's what I can tell the parents who have those similar concerns, is that SYA puts in place reasonable rules to follow. Not, I wouldn't say strict, because if you're too strict, then you hinder the experience. But their rules and curfews are reasonable. So, and you know, I never worried about Leah being out later than was necessary, but also I trusted Leah enough to know better and areas to avoid. In addition, SYA, I noted they brought in the local police, or was it gendarme? Police?
Police Nationale.
Police Nationale. And they briefed the students there on safety and what to do, how to dial for emergency services, and of course, things to think about. And that definitely hit the right button with me, because, you know, SYA, we're always going to, and we'll tell you as parents, Rennes is very safe. And it is. I certainly consider it safer than where I live here in Maryland. But they're not naive either. You know, they're not going to say, look, there are certain risks, and to avoid those risks, here's what you need to do, and here's who you need to contact. And that was very reassuring to me.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you both. Madame Keegan, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Madame Qadir. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to hear from you all. There have been a lot of questions in the chat, and I did just want to recognize, I thought the question about homesickness, and Ocean and Leah both really very poignant personal responses to that, and I really appreciate you sharing that. I wonder, Madame Qadir, if you could speak just a little bit, since you've seen homesickness over the course of the whole 9-month journey, what that's like for students, and sort of what that experience has been for our kids, and how we can support them.
Sure. So I would say that happens to all of them. That's normal. It wouldn't be normal if they wouldn't feel homesick at one point. I would say that typically for most of them, it happens around November for different reasons. There's Thanksgiving. It's a very important moment. And it's probably the first time ever they're away from home around that major holiday. I would say also that in November, it gets cold. We have less sunlight. That obviously plays on their mind. And also I would say that in November, we're really at full speed. September, I would say, is the honeymoon phase. They're discovering Rennes, they host families, they getting to know each other. Then October is still a good time, and they start their classes, and then we travel. This year we went to Bordeaux for a week. And then when they come back in November, everything is old. They're going back to schools, the same families, the same teachers, the same school. So that's when it happens for a lot of them. And then it would happen also sometimes after the winter break, so the December break. And I would say to students who would maybe travel home. So that's why we don't want them to go home for all kinds of reasons, one of them being homesickness. So you would have to petition if you wanted your child to go home during that break, meaning we would have to have a very good reason that the student needs to go home during December break. So if they don't do that, usually they're fine. And if there is homesickness at any point, and if we cannot help, meaning the advisor, myself, the host family, then we do work with the Truman Group. They offer psychological care to our students, and they actually specialize in expats and teenage expats. So we connect them. We have a Truman Group presentation during the immersion time in September. And then they have that email address. It's posted on a board at school. If not, they come by and see me, and I connect them with someone that can help them, and they talk it through. It takes 1 or 2 sessions oftentimes, and then they go back to their normal rhythm. But I would say it's normal to have those feelings at some point, and sometimes several times throughout the year.
Great, thank you so much. Another one of the questions was talking about French level, and just so everyone is aware, the minimum requirements you have to have completed level 2. I appreciated Mr. Nielsen's response in that really it is about, you know, a desire to learn French. All of our students who come are not, you know, A+ students in French, but there does need to be that desire. You need to meet the minimum requirement, and there needs to be the desire to learn. And if that's there, it comes extremely naturally. So there was also a question about the daily schedule, and there was a little bit of an answer to that. But I wondered if maybe Leah, you could talk really briefly about when it starts, what lunch is like, when it ends, and then what the Wednesday is like.
Yeah, of course. So the schedule here is pretty different to that of the United States. We start classes at 9 a.m. most days, or every day. And school ends at 4:25. And then we have an hour and a half for lunch from 11:30 to 1 p.m. And each class is 45 minutes long, and most people have around 1 free period a day. And then on Wednesdays, like all French schools, we have a half day, and that's partially to accommodate extracurriculars, because the French school system works in that way. Some extracurriculars are Wednesday afternoons. And so on Wednesdays, we end school at 12:30, and then you can either go have lunch at Jean Massé, the French high school we eat lunch at, or you can go home or have lunch elsewhere. And yeah, I think the schedule works really well. It's essentially the French school schedule, which sort of enables you to have like a good connection with your host family. You're all home at the same times. And then school doesn't start too early, which is helpful for people with longer commutes. And the Wednesday half day is really nice. It gives you more time to get your homework done, and also time to explore the city, which is nice.
Great, thanks. That's part of being in school, right? Is what happens outside of school or in school here for SYA. It's a very comprehensive learning experience that extends well beyond the class day. So that's great. There were a couple of questions that were asking about visiting and the holidays, and there were some great responses in there. I do just want to reiterate what Madame Qadir said, and that we really do discourage students from returning home, but often many families, as long as they have the means, are able to come visit. But I also wanted to reiterate that the host families, when you greet your host family, when you arrive, you are a member of that family until the very last day of this program, and you are a part of the holidays and what they do, and that there's a lot to experience with your host families over the holidays too. I've heard some wonderful stories over the years of students participating in holiday activities with their French host families. The other question that came up a little bit was sort of in the context of learning French and the level of French that you're at. Sort of the family was considering the year versus the semester. I wanted to touch on that briefly. We are school year abroad, and a majority of our students do attend the program for the year, but we do have a limited number of spaces in the fall and in the spring for semester students. One thing I do like to point out, if you are considering the semester and if you're considering the fall semester, you may not get over there and then choose to extend because we have those spaces are then given to the spring semester students. So the fall semester students join with the full year students at the beginning of the year. They all take the same classes and they simply leave the program at the end of the first semester. And then our second semester students just arrived last week at the beginning of our second semester. And there is a brief orientation for them. They're matched up with a current year-long students who will sort of mentor them and they can shadow around a little, but they are very much integrated very quickly into the existing student body, and they do a wonderful job at that. They then finish the program with the students in May. So if you're considering any one of those options, again, our admissions team is happy to talk to you, but I did just want to touch base on our semester and year-long options as well. We're coming up right on the hour, and it is very late over in France, and it's a school night. So I want to make sure we let our students get their beauty rest. But quickly, I did just want to touch base quickly on the schedule for applications. And the application deadline is February 9th. It's coming up. Many of you have submitted your application and are working on it. And those of you who haven't yet submitted, there's still plenty of time. We're around and can answer questions that you have. Decisions go out in early March, and we will be doing another similar event to this with the team over in France, more faculty and students, where you can hear a little bit more about what life is like. But we hope that today's presentation was informative and helpful to you all. I want to huge thanks to our students, Ocean and Leah. I mean, evening, thank you so much for giving up your evening, and to their parents also who have joined in and shared an invaluable perspective, I think. So helpful that they were in all of your shoes in this place last year at this time. So thank you, everyone, and a special thanks to Madame Qadir too for getting the group together and inviting them and hosting us with a great conversation. So thank you. And we look forward to reading all your applications.
Merci, au revoir.